And of course, welcome back to The Pulse with me, Elton Brobe. Get interactive with us, follow us, and share your thoughts on our social media handles. Now, in the last few hours, Organised Labour has announced an end to a strike to demand suspension of all processes, leading to the sale of 60% stake in some SSNIT hotels. Now, good news, but it is only a precursor to a much bigger action, which it warns will happen if SSNIT fails to address what it says are other matters relating to the management of their pension funds by SSNIT. Shortly, we'll delve into that, plus hear from the leaders of Organised Labour on this. First, though, the impact the strike had in just a few hours of day one. My colleague Masola Baba, Kenneth Jesse, Nana Boachi, and on Love FM, they were out and about in Accra and Kumasi. Here's what they found.
Strike by the Judicial Service Association of Ghana has crippled a business here at this court complex, as a lot of people who came here today for court hearings today are going back home. Even the workers here are not staying back. They've all left. Earlier, we spoke to the president of the Judicial Service Association of Ghana, and he told us that until Organised Labour gives a directive, a clear directive on the status of the strike, they still maintain the position that they are on strike. And we can hear from some of the frustrated people we've been speaking to here.
I've been here 2 hours ago. So we're supposed to have court this morning. So when we came, they told the court to not be sitting due to the strike. So we asked to go back in. Yeah. So they didn't tell us when to come back. So it's a further notice. Yes, please. Yes. Because due to the strike, the court has to schedule another date for us. And maybe it will affect another court. Maybe the date they will reschedule to will interfere with another court. So due to time factor, things will be messed up. Yeah.
So I didn't hear anything from my lawyer. That's why I came this morning. I didn't see nothing. Court is go on.
What did he tell you?
I don't see anybody there. Because what that I hear from the taxi driver, they say the SSNIT property issue, so that they don't allow anybody today to work everywhere, everybody, and the lawyers too. But I didn't believe.
I've also been speaking to a legal practitioner, Samuel Andrews, who is unhappy about the situation here. He has been speaking to some of his clients, urging them to come back to the courts tomorrow.
And if it continues, people would have lost a lot. There are people who are seeking injunctions, restraining others from doing something. On account of this, they cannot be heard in court. Certain processes in court will have to be enforced on account of the strike. In fact, to put it bluntly, during this time, we have practically a state of lawlessness, just because people would continue to do whatever ordinarily the law, and when I say the law, I mean the courts, would have restrained them. So that is it. I had a hearing today for a matter, but then of course on account of this, the information came in late. And so we now have to reschedule. My clients, for example, were asking me when the next court date would have been. Yes, it should have been tomorrow because the dates are for the coming week. But of course, on account of this, everything has been thrown out of gear.
The Ghana Medical Association and the Ghana Registered Midwives and Nurses Association had all announced that in compliance with the directive from Organised Labour, they will shut down OPD services today. That is happening in some other hospitals like the Comfort Nochi Teaching Hospital. But here at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, doctors and nurses are attending to some OPD patients. Sources tell me that because the Kolebu Teaching Hospital is a referral center, it is difficult to turn away people, especially who have come from very far places to this facility. I've been speaking to the president and the chairman of the Health Services Workers Union here at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Caesar Bauer. Caesar Bauer tells me that his members, including mortuary attendants, are, however, on strike.
Some like us at now, we are not working. So as at now, the orderlies, lift operators, admin managers, administrators, lab technologists, lab technician, X-ray technician, stores assistant, and mortuary attendant. I think we are more.
So what is the economic and political cost? All that coming up. Plus also hear from the Director General of SSNIT, who says that calls for him to resign are simply unfair. The embattled Director General Kofi Osafo is described as unfair, calls on him and his management to resign over their handling of processes to sell off some stake in 4 underperforming hotels.
The problem is we have pension fund assets. That is people's money. And again, I wouldn't say other people's money. It's people's money, workers' money. If you have a fiduciary duty to improve performance, would you not try to do something about it? Is that the real cardinal sin in looking to improve the performance of underperforming assets? I don't think that is wrong. And again, I think you tag its universities. So let's talk about how one would manage a portfolio. You cannot manage a portfolio without doing anything. Something has to be done. We just have differences in opinion in how we arrive there. And that in itself is healthy because it means that we engage all stakeholders and we come to a solution. I don't think that it is ever possible that everyone would have the same solution in mind for a problem. Some people philosophically are even opposed to the simple fact that private investors are being brought in. You can never change their minds. Again, when we look at that and we look at the operational improvements that have been brought in, benefits processing times at about a third of what they are, the efficiency of the SSNIT operations being much better, improve the portfolio. Because of that, the university teachers think that that is the wrong procedure. I think that is not fair enough. We are going to go back to the drawing board. The rationale at the time of lotting these hotels, and we lotted them with those in Accra, i.e. Labadi and La Palm being lot 1, lot 2 being the Cape Coast hotels, i.e. Elmina and Ridge Royal, and lot 3 being the hotels in the Western region. We've come to this point. We will go back and re-examine it. And again, as I said, this is an issue of stakeholder engagement. We've terminated the process. The stakeholders and ourselves will then sit down and we would see how we progress. I think that in the heat of things currently, it would be wrong for me to suggest openly my thoughts because that in itself could also go and raise other issues about, hey, he's thought of doing this again and he's doing this and he's doing that. No. Let's go back to the drawing board when we have a trauma environment, and then we will engage our stakeholders, arrive at a solution. I think what is important is that the status quo is not acceptable. The poor performance is not acceptable.
So the latest development this afternoon, if you are just tuning in, is that Organised Labour, they've called off the strike and asked all workers to return to post. It doesn't mean they are satisfied, though. They are demanding engagement on the management of the fund. All that must happen within 1 month, or they will advise themselves.
On Friday, the 12th of July 2024, Organised Labour called on all workers to join an indefinite strike starting from today, Monday, 15 July 2024, to back our demand for the termination of the process towards the sale of 60% of SSNIT's shares in the 4 hotels. In a letter dated 12th of July 2024, with reference number BC/12/07/2024, SSNIT informed organized labor that it has terminated the sale of 60% of its stake in the hotels. At an emergency meeting held today, Monday, 15th July 2024, organized labor has decided to call off the strike. All workers are requested to resume work on Tuesday, 16th July 2024. We are giving SSNIT 1 month to engage organized labor to address all outstanding issues related to the management of our pensions.
So the issue that if nothing happens, they'll be back to this situation around the middle of August yet again. So what are these concerns or matters organized labor is expecting SSNIT to address? Joining me via Zoom is Director of Research for Organized Labor, Dr. Kwabena Otu, for more on this. Dr. Otu, good afternoon. Welcome to the Pulse. If you can kindly unmute for me, Doctor.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So can you walk us through what you are asking SSNIT to do within 1 month, failure upon which you will possibly escalate what you wanted to do today?
Okay, thank you. I think there are many issues with SSNIT. And if you remember, recently the ILO evaluation report listed a number of those issues.
Right.
What is most important is that, under the new Pension Act, SSNIT is supposed to do valuations of its scheme every 3 years. So as you know it today, since 2011, SSNIT has been doing this valuation report, but has kept it a secret. So the latest one that we have seen and we've all discussed was dated back to 2020. There has been one in 2011, there has been one in 2014, there has been one in 2017 and 2020. Interestingly, the ILO lists a number of things for SSNIT to address. And you can be sure the 2014 recommendations are repeated in 2020.
Right.
Meaning that SSNIT actually isn't doing much about some of these issues. Now, to be specific, our pensions are very low in this country. They are highly low. SSNIT investments are not doing well. You know that returns on SSNIT assets are far below the risk-free rate of treasury bills. We have raised these issues many times. And in fact, since 2022, we have called for a national dialogue on pensions. Nobody has listened to us. So we think that this is the time for us to sit SSNIT down and its board and managers to be able to address all the issues related to pension. Mind you, we have in this country pensioners going home with less than 500 Ghana cedis a month.
Is that the doing of SSNIT? Isn't the fact that perhaps your contribution was low? Based on the calculation, that's how much you are getting. So isn't the problem from where you are working and how much money they are paying to represent your contribution?
So it's part of it, but you should remember that SSNIT pension is a solidarity pension. It's based on insurance solidarity principle. So where if you invest well and you have enough resources, you are able to solidarize to compensate for those that earn very low incomes. But we have come to know that SSNIT investments are not doing well. So it is not just the hotels. There are many SSNIT buildings in Accra, World Trade Center, the trash towers.
Right.
They are all empty, built with millions of dollars of workers' funds. Why are they empty? What was the management process that led to the situation in which those assets find themselves? And I mean, since 2019, SSNIT presented to NPRA an investment guideline showing exactly what it will do with SSNIT, with pension workers. So for example, it projected that it will invest 60% of pension funds in fixed income securities, and it ended up doing only 22%. It projected that it would do some 25% in equities, but ended up doing about 50% in equities, about 25% in unlisted equities. All of these things do not really earn much for SSNIT. In fact, if you take the risk-free rate of treasury bills, SSNIT projection in that guideline was that they will do 17% of their investment in treasury bills. They ended up doing only 3%. Why is it that they themselves cannot even keep to their guidelines when it comes to SSNIT investment?
But
there are many.
Yes, Dr. Otu, I wanted to come in. So sorry for butting in, but I mean the concerns you raise about the poor investment decisions of SSNIT, which ultimately is responsible for the low pension they pay to beneficiaries when they go on retirement, does not answer the reason why SSNIT wants to offload 60% of its stake in these hotels. The claim is that the hotels are not doing well. If they continue to invest, to put money into an entity that is not bringing the needed returns, then it will affect the bottom line in terms of how much they will pay to beneficiaries under the scheme. So that does not answer the very question of why SSNIT wants to undertake this exercise to allow some financial injection into the hotels through the participation of the private sector.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Doctor.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
So we understand that statement or that explanation from SSNIT, but let's go back. Let's understand. Why is it that Labadi Beach Hotel, La Palm Royal Beach Hotel, isn't doing well? Mensvik is doing well. Errata Hotel is doing well. All these medium-sized small hotels run by individuals, they are doing well. We ought to understand. Because we have a culture in this country where we deliberately run down state assets in preparation for privatization. And especially when it's being privatized to individuals connected to government, it becomes too difficult to accept.
Right.
So let's go back. Let's understand, why is it that a prime hotel like La Beach, La Palm Royal, I mean, people selling cocoa in this country are making profit. They are going bad. How on earth? And in fact, if SSNIT management, the board, tells us that they cannot...
Hello, Doctor? Right, so, I mean, yes, please go on. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Please go on. You were making a point.
So the point I'm making is that if all these top-tier, small, medium-sized hotels in Accra, Kumasi, and everywhere are making profit, and if SSNIT board and its management tells them that they cannot turn around a prestigious hotel like Labadi Beach and La Palm Royal, then they probably should give way to others who can do it and not take the easy route of saying that let's privatize it.
And then a response...
Anybody can do it.
A response to that, and that will be, I'll ask two more questions so that I can bring in Peter Tekpe and political scientist Dr. Ali Duseidu. Dr. Otu, a response to that this morning from the Director General is today. I mean, you remember that UTAG and some other people have asked for his resignation and the resolution of the board. He says that call is unfair because if you want to take this decision regarding the hotel away, they've done so much in reviving SSNIT since 2017, and that it looks like attention has been paid only to the hotels. But in terms of what they've done, they have moved SSNIT from underperformance to what we can be proud of. What's your response to this?
So what we know of SSNIT, at least from the ILO valuation report, doesn't tell us that there has been that much improvement. In fact, if you look at the ILO valuation report, in 2014, it says that SSNIT reserves will deplete in 2042. And
they will tell you that they get these reports all the time, but it has never materialized.
They don't do. In 2017, it says that the reserves will deplete in 2038. Then in 2020, it says that the reserves will deplete in 2036. So the doomsday is approaching, even as they claim that they are doing a lot to salvage SSNIT. We also know that workers are going home with less than 500 Ghana cedis a month. So it doesn't, the outcome, the things we see from our members doesn't bear out the assertion by the SSNIT MD.
All right, let's leave it here. You've given SSNIT an ultimatum of 1 month to meet certain demands. We'll wait and see. But in the meantime, you have asked all your members to go back to work. The matter relating to the hotel, since they've cancelled the deal, hoping that they will further engage all interest parties on this matter. Dr. Otu, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, let's explore this other matter relating to this very important national discussion. It's about the political costs and the economic costs of what would have been a total government shutdown. Policy analyst Peter Tekpe and, of course, political scientist Dr. Ali Duseidu joins me on the line. Let me start with you, Dr. Ali Duseidu. Good afternoon. Right, so we have Mr. Peter Tekpe on the line. Mr. Tekpe, good afternoon and welcome to the Pulse.
Good afternoon.
Great to have you here. So, I mean, we nearly had a government shutdown today, but around midday, Organized Labor came out to say that they've suspended the strike, hoping that SSNIT will meet certain demands that they've put on the table. But before that, in the morning, at the ministries, in some hospitals, and in some other places, they were observing the strike, bringing a standstill to activity, especially at the governmental level. To what extent do you think, if this should have allowed to stay, would have hurt our economy?
We thank God that indeed the strike has been called off now. In fact, you can see the impact in just a day.
Right.
Where government agencies, institutions have been shut down. Productivity has come to a halt. And this is a national security issue because when it happens like that, people who are looking for certain timelines to be met as a result of services that they require from these agencies. I mean, they will miss these timelines. People who have critical health conditions that also need to be supported with will also miss this. So the impact is huge. And this is an indication that issues concerning labor should not be taken for granted at all. And I think that it is good that labor has called off the strike because the impact this morning has all been felt just within a short period.
So if you want to analyze the few hours that the strike was in force, how many steps has this taken the country back?
In fact, this cannot be quantified in terms of monetary terms immediately. But you can look at on daily basis what goes on within the economy. And so you are looking at the various ministries, you are looking at the court system, you're looking at the medical system, and you're looking at the funds that flow in through institutions every day.
Right.
And so you can say that this has taken us back in terms of millions of cities that might be lost in a day, because if you put all agencies together and you look at monies that are being paid on daily basis, that should tell you within a short time, if you visit the hospital, services will have been paid for, all those who will not have been done, people will have gone home. If you go to the court system, you will have ended up making payment in order to get services done. All this has gone up. So it is a critical issue that needs to be resolved.
But again,
so indeed, money has been lost in this, but that's just that it cannot be quantified immediately in monetary terms.
But again, also tells you how vulnerable the country can be if situations of this nature repeats itself in the future. As we go forward, I know that you've been following this net discussion. From your own point of view, what should be done now? Now there is a hold on the attempt to sell off the hotels, and then the one who won the bid has also pulled out. Going forward, how do you think this matter must be handled?
In fact, this is a wake-up call for us to look at the entire pensions regulatory management.
Right.
If you look at, for instance, NPRA, there are restrictions as to where you can invest your money in terms of the Tier 3 pension scheme and then Tier 2, where you can invest. So there are cappings. I think that it is time for us to look at that also for SSNIT, where we can regulate what assets SSNIT can invest in and what assets SSNIT cannot invest in. So that when there is this capping, then this will not come with these issues. Because right now, SSNIT has the mandate to choose which investment to make. But when there are restrictions, then it regulates and guides as to what needs to be done. This hula baloo wouldn't have happened. And so this is a wake-up call for us to look at the entire SSNIT system to see what can be done to regulate it properly going forward, so that it will not be left in the hands of few individuals as well. And I think that this is also a wake-up call for us to look at the composition of some of these institutions,
right,
where we should not allow government to appoint managers of these institutions, especially the leaders. I'm talking of the MDs. We shouldn't have workers being, the leaders being appointed by the government. I think it should go through the normal process where right people will be appointed into these institutions so that decision-making will follow some process.
And again, because you brought this issue, we just want to find out what your thinking is that's been caused by people like Austin Gami, a labor expert, UTAG, that's the University Teachers Association. They've said that the current management of SSNIT and the board, the pensioners or contributors, they've lost confidence in the ability to sustain the trust, and for that reason, they should give way. The MD says, looking at what they've done, if you want to take the hotels, if you want to isolate the hotels, it will be unfair for you to ask them to resign because they've done so much in reviving SSNIT. What is your take on this?
The issue for me is not the management of SSNIT. The reason is that this issue wouldn't have come up if Honorable Okuyeto did not get the details or information through his own means.
Right.
Everybody would have not known. And so the issue is that we should be looking at regulating the institution. Because if you check management, the same government will still appoint the board members, the same government will still appoint the MD. And so then what are we solving? So we need solution that will prevent this from, going forward. And so the issue is not about SSNIT management, even though they have not taken the right decision. But in the past, this is how they have been dealing with. It's just that this one came up and we all got to know. Right. But in the past, most of these decisions were taken that nobody knew about.
And then it's very interesting because on the board of SSNIT right now, 4 Cs on the board belongs to the Trade Union Congress. Yet, it took the intervention of a member of parliament to bring to light what was happening. So it questions the interests of organized labor who are now demanding left and right what must be done as SSNIT to put it on a sound footing. Yet they had members on the they still have members on the board. Question is, what did they do when this was tabled at the board meeting?
That is why it is very important that they look at the type of members they put on boards. It has to be people who are very credible, people who immune to their interest. When you go to the board meeting and there is any major decision of this nature, the members on those boards, who do they report to?
Right.
Doesn't mean that they have not given feedback to any of their labor organizations or organized labor that this is what is going to happen. What has labor itself put in place? That in situations like SSNIT, when there is any major decision, please come back and inform us that these are decisions that are being taken. So I think labor also has to look at its processes that is in place in ensuring that they receive timely feedback on things of this nature. Other than that, they will still appoint other people. They will go there, something will happen, they will not know, and before they realize it's too late. So they should have processes in place to say that each month, anytime you go to board meeting, please give us feedback of major decisions that are being taken. Then labor cannot come back to say they are not aware. As a matter of fact, human beings are human beings. If they change and they put other people there, and they don't have these measures in place, similar thing may happen, and now they may say that they may not even inform anyone. They will tighten their security. Nobody will have this document released out, and then nobody will know, and it will be sold out as well. And so it is up to labor organization to see the processes they put in place to ensure that they get timely feedback on decisions of such nature. Very, very critical.
All right, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Policy analyst Peter Tekpe sharing his thoughts on the economic implications of what we witnessed this morning when almost the entire government was shut down because workers embarked on a strike. At midday, TUC announced at a news conference they've called off the strike and now demanding that all workers return to work tomorrow. We're hoping that tomorrow business will flow seamlessly across all government institutions and, of course, even in the private sector. But they've given SSNIT 1 month to meet certain demands. If SSNIT is unable to do so, the warning here is that they may embark on a similar action. Now, we also brought to you the take of the Director General of SSNIT, Kofi Osafumafo, who says that calls on him to resign and the dissolution of the board is simply unfair. Now, we will take a short break and return. We're hoping to get a political scientist who explain the political cost of this impasse, but we don't have him yet, so we don't have Dr. Ali today. But let me bring in head of our political desk, Evans Mensah, who is also been monitoring this particular development. So Evans, welcome to the pause. So we just spoke to Peter Tekpe, policy analyst, who walked us through the economic implications of what happened this month. Even though by midday we managed to deal with the matter. Evans will join me in studio shortly after this break. But just some news just in is that passengers traveling from Kwawu at Dawosu to Kwawu from planes are trapped on the Volta River due to faulty ferry. Hundreds of commuters are stranded. And this is a picture of the ferry we are talking about. The news, the breaking news is that this hour is that passengers traveling from Kwawu at Doso to Kwawu from planes are trapped on the Volta River due to faulty ferry. Hundreds of commuters are stranded. So Volta River Authority and those who are managing the ferries and, of course, traveling on the Volta Lake, this is what we are learning this afternoon. And, of course, we'll bring you more as the show progresses. But for now, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll look at the political cost to what is happening between SSNIT and organized labor. And then later, I'll have that conversation with WAEC on the just ended BEC. Stay right there. This is The Pulse. Right, so let's conclude the discussion on this matter that is still unresolved between Trade Union Congress, Organized Labor, and of course SSNIT. Now, you and I, who are still working and contributing to SSNIT, our money or our future is at stake, regardless of how this discussion goes. So, what is the political, damage this may have on the government ahead of the December 7th election? Knowing very well that this whole matter started with allegation of conflict of interest when Brand Champions company came in. So Evans Mensah is head of a political day. So Evans, we've looked at the economic impact of this. I mean, the total government shutdown that we witnessed in the early hours of today, which eventually got resolved by me. I know that a lot of people won't go to work today. But politically, at the center of this whole controversy is the fact that the person who won the bid is a certain cabinet minister, politically exposed. So the issue of conflict of interest was a matter that was first raised, and then the other matter started, rolling in. To what extent can this hurt the MPP going to December 7th elections?
Significantly. I mean, if you look at the way this has traveled and the timelines, it first was raised and made an issue by Okuditu Ablakwa, who, as you know, is a politician.
Right.
And it became an issue between himself and another politician, in this case, Brian Champon. So it was first a political issue before the organized labor joined it, right? Although, of course, as we know, the organized labor had 4 members on the SSNIT board. We didn't hear, at least publicly, a protest from them until Okuditu Ablakwa made it an issue. So instantly, from the very onset, this was set to become a political battle. But when Labour then joined, Labour took the side of Okuditu Ablakwa on this particular matter. And you just have to look at the number of public sector workers that we have.
Exactly.
They are significant. And they can tilt an election one way or the other. And that is where the issue is. So just imagine all the more than 700,000 workers across the country who today have decided not to work and what they are thinking, because they would have been communicated to on Friday by their leadership about why they embarked on this strike. Why? Because government is being obstinate. Government had decided to ignore the warnings from Labour. And Labour told them that if you go ahead with this, you're going to call a strike. We're going to ask our members to lay their tools. And government, in essence, went to Parliament, the minister went to Parliament and said, in spite of that threat, we're going to continue. That doesn't speak well in an election year. It's not even an election year only. This is just 4 months for major elections. For the middle-class floating voter, who is part of this huge number of workers, these things matter to them.
Right.
And this can actually help somebody make up their minds about an incumbent government. So it definitely has serious political and electoral ramifications. Also considering that it's about Brian Champon, who himself is a cabinet
and a member of
minister,
Parliament. Yes.
a member of Parliament. And so what did Labour say? Labour says they do not want SSNIT to sell the stakes at all. But remember, this is not how it started. The original fight was really about the politically exposed individual buying state assets.
Exactly.
But as they deliberated over the issues, they then came to the conclusion that even if he withdraws, we do not want the sale. Then, if you move it away from the political players involved, as in Okuditu Ablakwa and Brian Champon at the beginning, and you will focus on their substantive demand now, which is don't sell it.
Exactly.
SSNIT has said they won't sell it. You have to look at the management of SSNIT and the board. The current individual who occupies the top hierarchy of SSNIT management is who? Is the son of Osafo Mafu.
The senior minister.
Exactly. He is a politically exposed individual. You cannot separate him from the governing party.
Absolutely.
And then you go to the board. Majority of those on the board were appointed by the president.
Including the board chair.
Including the board chair. And so you've heard UTAC say, we want them away. When the UTAC makes that call, it is a call that is directed at the appointing authority, which is the president. So however you look at it, however you slice and dice this, it just falls squarely within the political arena. And that only has one implication for you. It will damage your chances of winning an election if you're an incumbent government.
So how does government come out of this?
Well, they have done...
To present, a posture that says that we are not taking state assets. Perhaps whatever happened was as a result of somebody going through the due process and coming on top. This is rule of law at work. Perhaps they failed to look at the political implication of the action that they were taking. So what can government do to come out of this unhurt?
It was bad enough that Brian Champon was attempting to buy, but the government had made it immeasurably worse by the way they've allowed this to snowball into a point where it became impossible for them to continue, right? And I think the nail in the coffin, as far as this implication, the political implication is concerned, was what the minister did on the floor. Right. Remember, until the minister went to the floor and said, listen, although the pensions regulator had called for the documents, I can tell you that we've given them the go-ahead to continue. Until he said that, this had been treated as, this is a SSNIT decision.
Exactly.
And so leave it to SSNIT to decide. But when the minister got involved on the floor of parliament, it became, okay, so this, after all, is a government decision. And government supports it, right? And then what then happens is you allowed Brian Champon himself to decide that I am withdrawing the bid. That was the first inclination that things were unraveling. I think that was a monumental error in sending a signal, because you asked the question, how does government repair this?
Exactly.
I think that the damage has significantly been done. It'll be difficult to explain to anybody that the termination of the process shows good faith. Because Brian Champon withdrew, assuming that the president from the beginning himself had issued a statement asking SSNIT to terminate the process. You take it out of the hands of Brian Champon. That would have carried more leverage, more weight in terms of convincing people that you meant well than allow this to snowball to... So what if Brian Champon didn't withdraw? What would have happened? Are you suggesting that they would have gone on anyway? So I think that's where they lost the opportunity. That's where they lost a significant opportunity to show to us that, yes, we are listening, government, which is a point in particular, right? This doesn't show that. You could have levied us to say, oh, we heard the complaints. And I think this is the thing, this is the problem. They boxed themselves into a political arena. It's because the initial complaint came from an individual from the NDC. Yeah. It became difficult for the incumbent government to say we are pulling away. If you're pulling away because of
giving up,
because Okuditu said it, that's how they perceived it. But immediately you saw civil society join. Immediately you saw organized labor join. That's when the signal should have hit them.
Exactly.
That it's time to pull the plug.
It didn't happen.
And either the president should have said it, the minister should have said it. Remember, the president asked the minister to meet them.
Yeah.
And when they met
the president actually met them.
Exactly.
And when I spoke to Abraham Kunsen on this show last week, I mean, we are yet to verify this information that at that meeting, the president made it clear that, I mean, this is a SSNIT decision and that whatever decision SSNIT has taken, he has no business asking them to go back on that decision. And he felt that, I mean, he felt they were, for want of a better word, they were not treated right at that meeting with the president at the Jubilee House. That's the reason why he said that he was not going to honor any other meeting to resolve this matter at the Jubilee House.
Yeah. So that was the line of government, that this is a SSNIT decision. Leave SSNIT and this board to handle this. And so he says the minister should meet them subsequently. They met them and then they began some consultations.
Exactly.
Only for the ministers to show up on the floor last week. And remember, what triggered this nationwide organized labor strike was a minister's pronouncement.
Exactly. It's the MPA, they claimed that the MPA had given SSNIT the all clear to go ahead. And that's, pushed them to take this tough decision. But even before we went 30 seconds, so does this open government up for all manner of demands and agitations as we head towards the elections?
You would see.
Because clearly some vulnerability has been identified.
So just pay attention to the press conference by Organised Labor today. They're asking SSNIT to come and brief them on the state of their pensions. What would this do? One thing is clear, that we know government is always in arrears when it comes to pensions. So at the end of the month when this briefing happens, you will see Organised Labor going back to government now even more insistent that government should pay up the arrears. So definitely demands will go up. The negotiations about base pay for next year, the minimum wage the other worker groups that are already agitating over conditions of
Right.
service, all will intensify on the back of this, because members will say, government isn't listening to you. They nearly sold these state assets to a politically exposed individual for $61 million. If they can do that, then it deserves no sympathy on these matters. And I guess that is where the challenge is, because of the signal it sends.
Right. We'll chew more on this matter in the hours. Top Story News Now will have more to unpack on this matter. We'll take a short one. When we return, the BEC is over. Some teachers were arrested, plus some invigilators. We're going to do a post-mortem exercise with the Director of Public Affairs, John Kapi, after the break. Stay right there.